every single time I play the victim, every single time I pass the buck and take the responsibility away to someone else, I'm just fucking myself up.
I'm gonna make good money.
It's not about having a big following.
I know coaches that made $1 million and spent $850,000. The number I'm looking at that I'm optimizing for is profits, not revenue. But in the business world, people only talk about, like, I can't be rich, I can't be wealthy, then that would make me a bad person. I'd been working, I'd been putting together a program, taking steps to make money, but my commitment was, I only work out of inspiration, not desperation.
In a coaching context, it's super fucking easy to make things complex when it just needs to be really simple.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the time we love making things complex because it almost distracts us away from the boring stuff that needs to get done. That is just the simple things. It's just the rudimentary day-to-day things that need to get done that kind of power the business at the end of the day. And what I love about what you said, I love what you said when it comes about like building true wealth. I think especially in the worlds that I think we like, in the little worlds that we're in when it comes to like the coaching business side of things, no one's fucking talking about that stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like,
no.
And I had some conversations recently with some mates, and I know like I know their numbers, and they fucking make cash, right? Like they're doing good money, but their net worth is fucking zero. Do you know what I mean? Like they've got some cash, but their actual wealth building is just like not there. And for me recently, I was just like, what the fuck, fellas? Like, why? Do you know Alex Shafran? By any chance? Yeah. Okay, so I hung out with him yesterday, but I've known him for a few years. He's been like a great friend and mentor for me. And he was the one that was like, track your net worth, right? Like,
totally. Track
your net worth. I was like, okay, cool.
It's like a monthly metric for me.
Yeah, dude, 100%. Fucking 100%. Like, it totally is. And so
it actually creates a lot of ease because my income may go down, but my net worth goes up. I'm like,
all good.
Okay.
That's the main thing that we want to look at. And I think especially in an online business world where it's easy to look at leads and then sales and then like kind of revenue there, but a lot of the conversation isn't about actually, well, how much money am I actually putting in my pocket? Number one. How much am I actually enjoying life and like what it is that I'm doing as well? Like what's the kind of like feelings that I'm wanting to get out of it? And then like, what's the kind of work that best gets me to help people doing what I enjoy at the same time as well?
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you bringing that up because for me, that's just like, oh, where the fuck were you, Mike, all those years ago when we could have been having these conversations together? You know what I mean? Like,
I had to learn some of these things.
So for me, the realization was recently, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. So, like sold the company at the end of last year. It's only been like 4 months or something like that. And I had a mentor, Sharan, and he taught me the concept of like financial freedom. For him was at least 200% of like your living expenses paid for. Do you know what I mean? So myself, I've got 4 daughters, wife, do you know what I mean? So we're a family of 6.
200%, so that's his income.
It's
twice what he needs.
Passive income.
Passive income.
Got it. So financial freedom is being able to have lifestyle expenses at 200% from passive income. And it was not that long ago that I hit that goal. I mean, I hit that target. And I was like, okay, amazing. This is really good. I don't have to work for money. I'm working more now than I did running the company before I sold it. But like, I don't have to work for money. I've created this actual wealth, and it was really interesting watching how my thinking actually changed, like being in a different position as well. And what I really liked with what you said before is like running a coaching business, and I was right there with you as well, brother. It's like we can create these cash producing machines, but if we're not doing the right things with the cash, or if we're not running the businesses in the right way as well, then we're not actually getting to the end outcome that I think we're all actually trying to achieve at the end of the day.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think, well, most coaches get into business because usually they don't want to do another job, right? They love the personal development, or they love the fitness, or whatever it is that they're coaching, they love, or the business, they love coaching that. And I think most people's idea of financial freedom in the beginning is, it may not be financial freedom. They're thinking about freedom, and one level of that is doing what you want to do, when you want to do it, how you want to do it, type of thing. And they don't think about it's like they get stuck in that frame of mind, because that's really easy to achieve.
Yeah.
You need 10 clients.
Yeah.
You need 10 clients to get you there. You don't need a huge following. There's all these things you don't actually need in order to have that level of freedom. But then the idea of financial freedom, I don't think even creeps in, because people confuse. They think about being rich, and I think that the social media really makes looking rich the thing that people want to do. Like, I want to have the house, I want to have the car, I want to have all this, so they want a high income. I was like, oh, I need to make $200,000 a year. I need to make $500,000 a year. My business needs to do this, and they're looking at it and how much they make in a year or a month or something like that. And so I think a lot of times people hit those numbers and they're still not satisfied, and they're like burn out, and they're like, why is this not working? And then I think a lot of people leave, like they'll ditch the business and get into something else. And yeah, just knowing the difference between high income and high wealth, or just wealth in general. I don't even think you need high wealth. I think most people want that wealth, and the way, I think we're defining it similarly. Like, if someone is got enough income producing assets that are producing that passive income that meets their lifestyle needs, that's wealth.
Yes.
Right? And so it might actually be worth me lowering my living expenses to like $150,000 a year.
Yep.
And if you don't have any debt, that's actually pretty good money. And being wealthy there. And it's like, okay, I don't need all that income. But I think a lot of people just they don't think about wealth, they think about income. And I think we've all been trained to think about income, how much you're making per year. All the business metrics are around income. And everything you learn in business is about and being service to the business, whereas building wealth is being in service to yourself and your family, and generational wealth. And, I look at like royalty, right?
Yeah.
It's like these people have been building wealth for centuries,
Yep.
right? And for the first time in human history, any fucking person can have that.
Yeah.
Like, look at Mark Zuckerberg. Like, this dude, he obviously came from some wealth or whatever, but he wasn't royalty level.
No.
But him, Elon Musk, some of these guys are just coming in, and like Elon is a great example, because he just came in and disrupted everything. Like, he's fucking with governments, and which was the most powerful thing on the planet. And so the idea is like, oh, anybody can do that in a single lifetime. And that's fascinating to me.
What I love about what you're really pointing at as well is the ability for us to be able to take responsibility for ourselves and where we're at. And I recently read a really great book by William McCaskill, What We Owe the Future. And he founded Effective Altruism and a few other things. And what he was really talking to was, we have the responsibility to think of these other generations down the path. So I put that then into the context. I was like, okay, I have 4 daughters, and I want to think about them, but why aren't I thinking about my responsibility for their children and then their children? Like, why am I just stopping at like myself or this like very close inner circle? But then what about my community? How do I affect your children and your children's children on a positive way as well?
Yeah.
And so it was interesting for me, because I do understand as well, someone might be listening to this conversation, they're like, dude, I'm barely making ends meet. And I'm like, okay, let's just make sure it's just like, let's get that level first. And then we can start kind of like building on top and expanding out as well. And so when it comes to the ability to, how do I earn money to flourish in like this life and this kind of like living standard now, and then start building on top of that, I totally get. But what I find really interesting as well, Mike, with what we were kind of jamming on before, was there is the element of building a business. And let's keep it in the context of like coaching business, right? Because we've cut our teeth there. And so my perception and what I see now, and especially with what I do now with my partners, is like for a successful coaching business, there is only like a handful of systems, like I call them playbooks, but there's a handful of systems that need to be in place for that business to actually like, do you mean get leads, get clients, deliver to those clients, have operational behind it? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not complex and it's not hard.
Really quickly, I love that you're joining us on the podcast. And if you haven't yet, I have a YouTube channel, which is our main hub. This is where we have all the episodes, so you can watch the conversations and join each episode to get all of the best content, the best insights. So click over to YouTube, go to the Christopher Dufey channel, as I would love for you to be able to join us there.
God bloody knows how bloody complex and hard and like, do you know what I mean? Teeth grinding I made it for so long until I came to this concept of it as well. So what I want to be able to kind of like really get into the weeds of right now is, how do you help coaches that you work with keep it simple? Because then what I really want to start delving into, which I think will be an awesome part of this conversation, is actually the personal development work. Like, that's where I want to lead this to right now.
Yeah, I think so. Like explaining that a concept of you're the person that's actually limiting the growth of your business is very difficult to get people to buy into that conversation at first, right? If you're doing marketing on social media and you're like, hey, you want to like build a coaching business, I'm going to give you some personal development. People are like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
When I see another ad that says make $10,000 a month, and like, well, that's my actual problem. This guy doesn't know what I'm talking, what my problem is. And so like getting people in, and I found that I can give people the foundation for business in 90 days.
Yeah.
Right. It's like an MBA program. It's like, this is how you budget. This is what a marketing funnel looks like. It's a pretty straight line. It's very, very simple, but people muck it up, right? And so in 90 days, if you just put in 30 minutes of work a day, you can have it, right? I was talking to a consulting company last week, and they're like, if you have 10 hours, can you work on your business 10 hours a week? And they're talking about scaling to 8 figures.
Yeah.
You know, that type of thing. It's like, yeah. Like, but people don't. People won't be able to do that. They're not able to commit to that. They may say it, but the actual follow through isn't there. So yeah, in 90 days you can have all the pieces, and it doesn't take that much time. And if you look at it objectively, you're like, yeah. But one of the things that I've been playing around with is what keeps people from getting results. And the first one being necessity, right? First, you have to have the necessity to get results. And most people, they have a desire, but they don't have a necessity. Like, oh, I want to have this. Like they're talking about it as coming from a place of lack. It's like, I want this, but I'm not there yet. And but it doesn't become a necessity because they're comfortable. They don't want to do the uncomfortable, because you have to change. Something inside of you has to change in order to do something new. So one is finding necessity. For a lot of times people are like, oh, they got to hit a rock bottom, or something really gnarly has to happen for them to find that necessity.
So is it like it's changing from a want to a need?
Yeah, it's like I have to do this. I mean, if you want to get spiritual with it, I've hit this moment a few times where it's like, you know, where I get so far off track and I find myself in the backyard looking up at the sky and be like, okay, God, I surrender, just whatever needs to happen, right? And it's a surrender to like, okay, there's a necessity for something to change in me, and I am now open to making that change, right? So there's this necessity, and the necessity for some people may be, you know, I've got a kid on the way and I need to make more money because this stress of not having enough financial abundance in my family is really making things difficult. And so I'm just not willing to put up with that anymore, right? You got to be willing to, it's like, I'm just not going to put up with this BS anymore. And so there's a necessity, and then there's knowledge. And the knowledge piece is, if you don't have the knowledge, then it makes it hard to do anything, right? You have to have the knowledge. I think that's really self-explanatory. It's like, how do you do the thing that gets the result?
Yeah.
That's all it is. Then the next step after that is trusting that process. Whatever, like knowledge, you can get everything you need to learn off of YouTube, right? But it's not packaged in a way. You could wander around in the desert of YouTube for a long time, just picking up information, and if you watched a different video on different days for 90 days, you probably did a bunch of circles and things didn't connect, and that's normal. But you need specific knowledge of a specific process, right? And like what you were talking about, the playbook, you only need a few playbooks in order to get there. And then you have to trust the process. So you have to have knowledge of the process, and then you have to trust the process and go, I know that if I put effort into this process, I'm going to get a result. And so I think a lot of times people don't believe that. There's a part of them that doubts it and wants to throw doubt in there. It's like I was talking to my fiance. She's not in the influencer marketing world at all, and
that's fantastic. I love that.
Yeah, and I have a client that's got 360,000 Instagram followers, right?
Yeah.
And we were talking about how he went from 2,000 to 360,000 in the last 6 months. And she goes, and she started making comments about like, oh, it's just, you get lucky. And I was like, 360,000 Instagram followers is on purpose.
Yeah.
It's not luck.
Yeah.
In fact, he logged years of posting.
Cumulative effect.
Like a year, I'd say he probably had like a year or two of like consistent 4 times a week. When new technology came along, when Reels came along, he started using Reels as soon as they came online. That helped. He showed up every day. Like he showed up, he did the Reels, he did the stories, and he just kept doing it. Funny enough, I talked to him a year ago, and he couldn't afford to hire me. And and I was like, his wife was like, look, until you make $10,000 a month, you can't buy any more education, because he had invested in education, right? And so he hits me up in January. So he's a fairly new client. So he hits me up in January. He's like, Mike, I blew up. I need to hire you now because I don't know what to do with all these leads. I'm like, okay, cool. But the thing is what's impressive about him is, and what I was pointing out to her is like, he didn't get lucky. He showed up and he kept doing it, and he was learning, and he saw what was working, and he kept refining and all that. And he trusted. He had enough faith and trust in this process. He goes, I'm participating in this process, and it's going to work. Even if people around him were doubting it, or his wife was like, you got to get another job. And he did. He went and did the other job, and he kept posting.
Good on him.
So it's this commitment to a process, and that requires some faith, that requires belief that this works. And I think a lot of people, they see someone who's had success, and they believe the story that they were lucky in some way. And it's probably inherited from their parents. The parents look at somebody who's wealthy and is like, their parents were wealthy, or there's some excuse for why somebody isn't, has it better than you, because it couldn't be me. It couldn't be.
It passes the responsibility of that person off, because that responsibility then means, well, I just didn't do what I needed to do, and that person was lucky, so
it's safe. It's safe to be a victim. Right? And the victim is anybody who doesn't take responsibility.
Yes.
That's all that is. Being a victim is like, I'm a victim, and I make myself a victim in things all the time. I'm not above it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I like to catch myself and be like, oh man, that was almost, I get disappointed in myself. I was like, I fell into that again.
Yes.
So there's the.
Can I just quickly talk to that point, because
Sure.
that's so salient for me right now.
Yeah.
Is my 2 journals are over there. So I journal every morning, every evening. And one of the questions that I ask myself every evening is, where was I playing the victim? And one thing I do at the end of the day as well is I rank myself 1 out of 10. And I can never use a 7. 7's a cop-out number, right? Because for me, 8 is a passing grade and 6 is a failing grade, right? So you can't use a 7 and sit there. So for me, it was really interesting because I was going back through it and I was like trying to look for some pattern recognition as to what was going on. And I found every single time I had 10s, there was one common thing that was happening in the day. I was not playing the victim. When I answered that question, where was I playing the victim? I wasn't playing the victim. I also ask a question, where did Mara manifest? Like from the Buddhist context, I mean, like Mara, I see you, as in like delusion. And it was just very interesting. Those 2 things would not show up when I'd have a 10 out of 10 day.
Yeah.
And it was just profound for me because I was like, oh, fuck, like every single time I play the victim, every single time I pass the buck and take the responsibility away to someone else, I'm just fucking myself up. And how that's a brilliant concept that you bring up, because I have one partner, he's got 1.5 million followers on YouTube, Instagram, like big audience. And it was interesting to me because such an amazing human being that has such great value for the world also, but was just a few things, and why I think I like to believe that we're working together now is there was just a few things missing that was then able to really turn that audience into raving fans, but like into actual clients that are there on a month by month basis being like, I'm more than happy to give you money. And also then clearly realizing it's not about having a big following. Do you know what I mean? It helps, and there is a skill set behind that as well. But one of my mentors does a bit over $2 million a week now. I reckon he does a Facebook post and about 6 people like it. Do you know what I mean? Like one of the like I have a note in my phone of like so many things I've copy pasted from the stuff that he's said and when I've sat down with him and stuff like that. Like that notes is like a gold mine for me as well. But no one knows who he is.
Yeah.
And it's profound.
Yeah, you don't have to be well known. Like right now, I was well known for a long time. Maybe I still am. I don't fucking know. But the desire for that is super low. I would rather get behind my client who's got 360,000 followers and guide him, and that's way more. Like again, I'm gonna make good money. Because I'm helping somebody in that position, but it's not necessary. I only need 1 of those clients or 2 of those clients for it to be really worth it, right? So like a lot of, I talk to people who are trying to get into the coaching business. I say you need 10, which means you technically only need 10 contacts. You don't need 100,000 contacts. But I think the more successful you become, and this has been my experience, is the fewer contacts I need. I need 1, 2, 3 clients in order to really be where I want to be.
Hola, I want to say a big thank you, muchas gracias, for listening to the show. Now, really quickly, this show is growing and it's all thanks to the ratings and reviews. So really quickly, I want to ask, if you have not left a review for the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever else that you listen, take the 30 seconds, please click on over, leave a review, as I really want to hear from you. And I want to know what is the best thing so I can cover in future episodes, what guests to bring in, what questions can I answer for you, what is it that you're getting out of being a part of this show as well. And I just want to say thank you so much for being a part of this show's success. Thank you so much for clicking over, leaving a review. Now let's get back to the episode.
A recent concept that I was working with myself as well, and then with partners, and it was just kind of like this epiphany that I had. I was like, oh, shit can be so much simpler and easier, was figuring out what my minimum effective profit wants to be. So just being like, hey, what's the minimum amount of money that I want to be making, and like where I'm at in this stage of my life as well. Because also kind of like in the last few months, I was like, all right, being in this very grateful position that I am now, I was like, I have 4 daughters. They're 9, 7, 3, and 1 at the moment. And they're only going to be this age for... for this one moment, do you know what I mean? This snapshot. And I was like, do I want to put my time, energy, effort, and resources into, say, building another company or doing this other venture, because I only have a limited amount of resources and I want to be able to also spend more time with my wife. Like, we've really come together, and I want to have more spend time. I want to spend more time like with myself and working on myself with amazing people that I want to be able to sit down with. Do you know what I mean? And so then I was like, oh, like, because I had the grandiose, yeah, let's do an 8-figure business on this next one. Like, let's do this. And I was like, but why? Like what's it actually going to give me, and what's the difference? And so then I was like, okay, what's the minimum effective profit, but what's my maximum output that I want to give it? So then I was like, okay, I want to be able to have this income goal, and I want to be able to have it only working 12 hours a week. So then I was able to sit back and be like, what's actually the right like economic business model to then be able to like figure that stuff out. And shit just became so much simpler. And then it was like from all of these different plethora of ideas and like concepts I could start going down. I was like, oh no, it's just this. That's it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it kind of like, it just came very clear. And what I like about what you're pointing at, and what we chatted about before we hit record as well, was like, there is no need to go after these things. Like you had very similar goals with wanting to do it, but then it's kind of like this, well, actually I'm building myself a business, and I've heard this so many times recently, it actually scares me. I've built myself a business that I hate.
Yeah.
And they feel completely trapped inside the business. And I'm talking, I've had dozens and dozens of conversations with 7 and 8 figure entrepreneurs, like super successful, and they're all male. They were all male. And what I found was they were lacking meaning and purpose in their life. They had built themselves a prison with gold, and the pain and suffering that they were having inside of themselves, I could see they hadn't realized until we kind of like pointed it out together. But they had what I called like a God-shaped hole, and more money and success ain't gonna fix that problem.
Right.
So them just wanting to build more success, have more money, get more revenue, all of that kind of stuff, actually was only creating the problem to be worse at the end of the day. And I think that's something that's not spoken about enough, because there's kind of like this poisonous belief in this kind of culture, especially in this like online business culture, where it's just like, let's just show big numbers of revenue and stuff like that, and these screenshots. And it's like, I don't care about your screenshot. I care about how's your relationship with your wife, with your children, with yourself. Like, let's actually kind of like look at those things. And yes, they're not like these tangible scoreboard numbers that we can point at, but I think they're fucking important at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that it's a status thing. So like, I'm not a successful entrepreneur unless I do 7 figures. And when I get to 7 figures, I'm like, yeah, I'm in the 7-figure club, but the guys in the 8-figure club are really cool. And so, I mean, just speaking from a wealth perspective as well, as like I've had more profits in a business doing $1 million than I did a business doing $4 million.
Yeah.
And you know, the number I'm looking at that I'm optimizing for is profits, not revenue. But in the business world, people only talk about revenue. I don't know if sometimes if you start talking about profits and you're a solopreneur, people are like, holy you know, then you're like revealing how much you make.
Yes.
Which you may not want, you know, everybody to know how much you're making, but it's okay to talk about what the business is making. And so because of that, then everyone's focused on that. And the marketing, it's a lot easier for me to say, like, let's make $1 million. But I know coaches that made $1 million and spent $850,000 on ads.
Yeah, totally.
And then other things. And
all their revenue was
no money
$1 million, but their affiliate payouts were $500,000. And you know what I mean? Then there's the actual expenses and all that kind of stuff.
Totally.
Well, which is, okay. I had a recent conversation that I recorded with an amazing lady, Angela Lauria. She had a $20 million business, and she consciously, purposely brought it to a $6 million a year business. So everyone was like, what the hell? Like, you're downsizing so much. Exact same profit though at the end of the day. So much easier to run. And that was something she really helped me understand when I was thinking about like, what's my minimum profit that I want to have? I was like, all right, I want to do 120K a month at 12 hours a week, and that's it, because I have so much more time. And it was a big gut check for me to kind of get that, because I was like, 120K a month, like we've done so much more than that. And then I look at other people and I'm like, oh, again, it's the status game. It's like, oh, but why isn't it 250? But what about what about $1 million a month? Like, and then I was just like, that game doesn't end going that way as well.
Never does. Never does.
Fuck, I've done some stupid things before. Huh?
Me too.
Dude.
Me too.
So, okay. So I really want to dive into the self-development side of things, because I think we could both agree on that the actual running of the business kind of stuff, there is a lot of simple things that can like make that actually happen. But what if we've got two different people, we give them the exact same plan to be able to follow. One falls to pieces, doesn't earn the money, doesn't achieve what it is that they want. The other person hits it out of the park, do you know what I mean? Makes all the money, the glory, everything that comes along with it. The separating factor was essentially how they showed up at the end of the day to do what it is they needed to do. I'd love for you to like peel this onion for me and kind of like tell me what you see when it comes to the self-development side of things. It's actually useful.
Yeah, the people, my first business client ever, she built an 8-figure coaching business and was able to sell it, I think, a year or two ago. And but the first time I coached her was maybe 2014. Mm-hmm. And so she kind of set me up to be to think it was easy. It was kind of like having a kid, and like your first kid's an angel, and then the next one comes along.
My first child, Ale, we call her the self-cleaning oven. She was so good. Like she, like, do you mean like she like potty trained herself? Like she's just absolutely amazing. So not that my other 3 children was like that, but it was just different. Like even she slept from 7 to 7. Sorry, but it was just that 100%. We were like, oh, this is amazing. We're so good at
Let's
this.
have more.
And we did.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: is like that's how I kind of like successful gamblers, right? Or not successful gamblers, but people who tend to get hooked on gambling, statistically had to win the first time they gambled. And so the person who wins the first time they gamble, they're like chasing that again. So I think the same thing happens. Like for me in coaching was I got lucky with my first client, and looking back, I can see, because the subsequent clients after that just frustrated the shit out of me. And I was like, why are these people not doing, like I tell them what to do. And the same thing happens in fitness, right? I was running a CrossFit gym, and like, they just don't do what I tell them to do. If they just did what they were supposed to do, they get the results, and they wonder, why is that guy getting results and I'm not? It's like, because he did what I told him to do. But the same thing happened in business. Is like, I told this woman exactly what to do, and she would come back and go, I did it. And I go, oh, okay. And some of my clients do it faster than I ever would, which is also interesting to watch. I'm like, So I told her exactly what to do. She does it. She keeps coming back. And within a year, is just off to the races. And I was like, okay. In a year, over $1 million, right? Never been a coach, never did anything, was just running like this is my journey blog of weight loss. And people are like, will you coach me? And then a year later, it's $1 million. So I got spoiled a little bit, but what I noticed with her that was different than a lot of the subsequent clients is their relationship to money. And I later, I think that's at the core of all of this, because money is how we keep score in business. If your relationship to money is poor, then it's going to muck up all sorts of other stuff in the business. It's a huge self-sabotage issue. And so for her, if I got to know her more and more and more over the years, and we're still really good friends. And what I ended up learning is her parents' relationship to money was super clean. Like they didn't, they had plenty of it. It wasn't, it didn't seem like they were hoarders of it. It didn't seem like they were afraid to spend it. It didn't seem like they overspent it. It seemed like they were very just even keel about money. And it was like, yeah, there's always money. It's always there, and we're good stewards of that money. And she inherited that. She didn't have any money stories to overcome. So when I said, do this, she did it, and she made more money, and she saw that as a reward. And so what I witness with a lot of other people is if I tell them to do certain things, I see the money story as being one of the primary things that gets in the way. They're like, so many coaches don't want, a common phrase is, I don't want to do it just for the money. I'm like, okay, well then don't do it just for the money. But the moment they start making money, they start feeling the story of, I'm doing this for the money comes up, and then they whatever's working, they stop doing. Or whatever is gonna work, they know it's gonna work, and they won't do it, and there's something emotionally inside of them that is stopping them from doing it. So I think that's if someone has a great relationship with money, I think everything in business becomes very easy.
I want to jump in and say thank you for listening and supporting the show, as at the moment we don't run any ads on the show. And if you're getting value, if you're loving the show, then I invite you right now to share this episode. Share this directly to a friend or share it on your socials. And when you do share it on social, please tag me so I can personally say thank you to you. My social handle is @Chris Dufey. That's Chris Dufey, as it means a huge deal to me, as this show is about us coming together as a community to help each other grow, as I really do believe that a rising tide lifts all ships. So take a screenshot, grab the link and share it with a friend that you think could get value out of this together. It will put a huge smile on my face, and I very much appreciate it.
How does someone become aware that their relationship with money isn't great?
Oh, they don't have any.
That's damn good answer.
They don't have any, or they have it, and every night they go to bed scared that they're going to lose what they do have. Like you gotta have like a great relationship with money is either here nor there. At one point, I left my business in 2018, and I was really doing a lot of work on myself. In 2017, 2018, the result of the working on myself was I'm going to step away from this business. Zero net. I mean, the only net I had was I had made some crypto money, so I had some money in the bank. And I was fucking off for the 6 months, and I just watched the money dwindle and dwindle and dwindle and dwindle. And so like the year before that, it was like I had a business doing millions of dollars, and now I'm watching my account, go down and down and down and down and down. And I was like, I actually feel okay with this. I'm okay with it, because before I had done all that work, how I valued myself and how much I would allow myself to love myself was indicated by how much money was in the bank. So if I was having a good day in business, everything was great. If I was having a bad day in business, everything was shit. So I was like, I'm gonna let it go to zero. I'm gonna see what this feels like. I'm gonna see if I can go all the way there. And I remember I got under $100, and my ex-wife, when her and I she was with me through all this. She was like, I'm gonna go to the grocery store. I was like, you can't. She goes, what do you mean? I was like, we're out of money. She's like, oh, okay, should we fast? I was like, yeah, I think that's a good idea. We should fast. And I was still doing my own podcast at the time, and later on that afternoon, like a box of food showed up. Like someone who runs a food prep company was like, oh yeah, have this food, because stuff would just show up my doorstep all the time. It's like, I guess we don't have to fast. We didn't have to go to the store either. And that was like, for me, it was like passing the test, because I'd been working. I'd been putting together a program. I was taking steps to make money, but my commitment was I only work out of inspiration, not desperation, because everything I'd done at that point was desperation. And if you really are just doing it for the money, that's a desperate place to be. And so I was like, okay. And then a week later, $10,000 rolled in, and a week after that, another $10,000, and then the money just started flowing in. The next thing you know, I was putting in a few hours a week of work, and the business started doing $500,000. I was like, cool, good to go. And so it's not just about, it's like, how do you feel when you check your bank account? How many people do you check your bank account every day? I check my bank account every day, every work day. I go in, it's one of the first things I do. I do my creative work first, but then when I start getting into the business, I go, oh, what's in the bank account? Cool. What's going on over here? I check the numbers, and can I be at peace with whatever's happening? You know, if we had a bunch of sales, I don't, you know, it's not really a time to celebrate. You know, I don't give myself some type of reward. I'm like, okay, cool, because I know tomorrow could be a dip. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna be have equanimity here, and just be okay with whatever. Like I'm putting in the work, and there's gonna be results, and the results are gonna vary, and that's okay. So I think that's like, if you can be in that place. If you're not in that place, then there's some work to do around the relationship to money. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think the relationship to money is mostly to do with how you think people, whether the tribe is going to accept you or not, for being valuable. You know, like if you have money in your account, you're valuable, and the tribe is going to accept you, and you feel safe. If you don't, then you might be outcast, and being outcast from the tribe back in the day meant
death,
starving to death. Yeah.
I love that. So I remember telling many clients, like, business is like a game of snakes and ladders at times. Do you mean sometimes you just roll and you hit a snake and you slide back down? Do you mean? But I think what comes to me, like the image that comes to me as you share that story, Mike, is there's just ebbs and flows. Do you mean? There are crests and there are troughs, and you don't need to. It is impossible, and I feel unnatural for it to be good the entire time. Just like life is never going to be good the entire time. We're going to have good times, we're going to have bad times, and it's natural for us to fluctuate between the two. But what I love about what you're sharing here is actually taking apart my value as a human being and what's going on with my business and like money, for example. Like these are two very separate things as well. How do you like pierce through the beliefs when someone has those merged together so much? Like how do you kind of make sure and ensure that the person gets that message? Because I feel like if they get that, suddenly a bunch of suffering falls away for them. Life becomes a hell of a lot easier.
A lot of suffering falls away.
Yeah.
Well, I wish it was something I could just tell somebody, but it's something they have to get to on their own. And I don't try to get too psychological about this type of stuff, but you know, it's usually just from what they learn from their parents, right? I have my clients journal about and share. I mean, I have a whole process that kind of builds on itself, but like one part of a course that I have is, you know, what did you learn from your mom? Spend 30 minutes straight just journaling about what did you learn from your mom about money? Not what she said. How did she behave with it? Did she hide her spending from your dad? Was she bad with it? Did she overspend it? Did she hoard it? How did she talk about wealthy people? And if you were wealthy, like how did she talk about poor people? Like because it's not just about money, it's about wealth too, right? And so how did your mom operate in the world? What did she model for you around money? And then the next day, it's another 30 minutes about dad. Like, how did your dad operate in the world? And it's going to be different. There's going to be different lessons that you learn and what was modeled. And so, you're taking from both. You're both your mom and your dad. And that is usually incredibly enlightening for people. They go, oh, and they do that journal exercise, and then an hour later, something's going on. They're like, dude, I see my mom, or, oh, I see my dad, and that starts loosening up the grip. And one of the analogies or examples I use is like, money has no energy, right?
It's inert.
People are like, money is, you know, what is money? Like, money is energy. It's like this spiritual conversation about money. I'm like, that's bullshit. We have energy, right? Money is, like you said, it's inert. Money only has the energy that we give it, right? And the energy we give it is dictated by our perspective and our perception of money, right? And so what we make it mean, we have this meaning-making machine that is our mind, and then that dictates our energy around it. I go, we got to shift how you energetically relate to money. So it's not just a cognitive thing. It's like we have to look at what's happening cognitively and emotionally and see what the conversation between your emotions and your mind is. And there's some work we can do there. But if we look at someone like an Elon Musk, going back to somebody, do you think his perspective about money and wealth is different than yours? It has to be. Well, everybody's is, right, for one. But how do you adopt, maybe you don't want to adopt his, but what needs to change in your perspective, in your perception, for you in stabilizing that perspective of money, of wealth? How do you shift that so that you just completely view it differently? Because you've been viewing it from the lens of your parents, and guess where they got it? They got it from their parents, got it from their parents, and they got it from their parents. And if I look at my lineage, I'm pretty sure my grandfather made okay money. He did well for himself, but he wasn't really involved in my dad's life. And then, so there's a little bit of a break there. My dad had to really figure out a lot of stuff for himself, and he wasn't wealthy. He struggled with money. But if I do ancestry shit, it's like my grandfather on my mom's side was a taxi cab driver in San Francisco. And everybody on my dad's side, I can't track them past Kentucky. They're hillbillies, right? Their relationship to money is different than somebody who was raised in a family that come from bankers or something like that. And the stories that they have about those evil rich people over there, you never want to be that. I can't be rich. I can't be wealthy. Then that would make me a bad person. And you may not believe that cognitively, but emotionally, it's in there.
I find that really interesting because I've gone through that process of thinking what has been the money stories that have been passed down for myself, and I would not deem any family members that I know as wealthy at all. And it's very interesting because in so much of the parts, I feel like I'm such a black sheep with my family, so just completely different as well. And I love all of them, just absolutely, incredible people, but just so different. And there was one day, one of my daughters came home from school, and it's they brought back all their artwork back from school, and there was this one page that they did, and it was a drawing of a dad, and had a bunch of questions, and it was my dad loves to eat, and she had vegetables. What I love to do with my dad is play at the beach, she wrote. And then there was a question that said, what's in my dad's pockets? And she wrote money. And I was oh, that's interesting, because I'm wanting to be as cognizant and as aware as possible. With my daughters, what's the meaning-making machine going on inside of them with what's happening as well?
Totally.
And I want to have very open discussions with money and be this is what a marketplace is, and this is what I believe money to be, and this is how we receive money, and do you know what I mean? What do we actually do? And it's about giving value out into the world, solving problems. And then it's been really interesting, the questions coming back from a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old, and it being and also forcing me to be able to explain it very simply, which has been something I've found really great, is for me to have to be oh, actually, I've got to explain this in very simplistic terms, which forces me to understand it in a much greater capacity as well.
Totally.
And so I've been very what's the money? I don't want to screw my kids up. Do you know what I mean? How do I not screw them up? Holy shit. So when it comes to you redefining your money story, Mike, how do you go about that?
My own money stories I wasn't trying to solve my money stories when it occurred. It was there's one retreat specifically where I really dug into it, and I had no idea why I was there. I showed up, I go to this retreat, and it's all around childhood emotional wounding for 5.5 days. And the only reason I went is because the woman who ran it was a personal friend of mine. I had her speak at one of my mastermind events. She spoke to some of my clients, and a lot of them were like, that was the best part of the whole mastermind. And we didn't talk about money at all.
Yeah.
And then a couple of them went to her retreat, and then when they went and saw her and then came back, they were totally different, which scared the shit out of me. I was like, I don't know if I want to go do that retreat, because I know that if someone makes a shift, that's not easy, right? That's not whatever they did was hard in that moment, right? At least that was my story. It was true. But so she kept on going, when are you going to do the retreat? Your clients have come, but when are you going to do it? And I was like, all right, fine, I'll do it. I'll take a week off. I'll do your retreat. And yeah, there was just so much stuff just around my childhood. Like we could look at, what's the stories about money, and that is a level, but really just what I got in that particular retreat is I got complete with my mom. I got complete with my dad. I was able to really love them completely, integrate them, but also have a barrier, like not a barrier, but like cut the cord, the energetic cord of who they are and who I am. And I got, a level of independence, and the money stories just fell away because they were tied up with other things. Like there's an author I love, Jed McKenna, and he talks about people want to believe that your mind is like analogous to a beautiful spider web. It's like, oh, if I pull this thought over here, then it's going to impact the rest of the web, and this and this and this, and it's hard to tell what this is connected to. And that may be accurate. He goes, it's more of a rat's nest. It's not as beautiful as you think it is. It's a disaster in there. Very disorganized. Everything's just stacked randomly in there. And if you pull on one thread, you have no idea what it's connected to. So if there's a belief or an identity or some type of emotional attachment to an idea, and then you burn it. You burn that thread and it's gone. You don't know what else is attached to all these other things. So yeah, as far as like working through my money stories, like I know some like NLP techniques, I know some language techniques, I know some hypnotist techniques to do that stuff, which is good. Those things do work to a degree. Yeah. But if you want to get truly complete with it, then you got to get complete with yourself.
Yeah. Shit, Mike, this has been a really good conversation, dude. I appreciate you a lot. We're going to have to keep going down this rabbit hole more and more and more. I'm taking a lot away from this conversation. You're a dude. You're a really good dude.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, my man. Where does the listener go to find out more about what's going on with you and what you're doing?
Yeah, you can check me out on Instagram at Mike_Bledsoe, and you can check out what I'm doing in business at thestrongcoach.com.
I highly recommend coaches do. You're doing fantastic work, Mike.
Thank you.
I appreciate you, brother. And selfishly, I just want more of you in my life. So thank you, my man. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for joining me in this episode. I really, truly hope that you have enjoyed this. Now, if you haven't subscribed to the show, please do so, because it would be a bummer if you'd miss out on the amazing episodes that are going to be coming. And one of the best ways for you to be able to support the show is to leave a review and to be able to share it out on social. And if you do share it out on social, please tag me. My handle is at Chris Dufey, that's Chris Dufey, as I would love to say a personal thank you for you sharing it out and for you to join us on the show as well. And as always, thank you so much. I feel privileged, I feel thankful, I feel grateful. I feel really blessed being able to do this and being able to have you join us as we figure this stuff out that we call life at the end of the day, and being able to do it with amazing conversations that we do here in this show together as well. So I'm wishing you an amazing day, and I'm really looking forward to us coming together in the next episode.